The newly wedded couple named James and Sophie just moved into a new apartment. They live a simple yet happy life until James receives a call telling him that his father has passed away. The couple then decides to live in the mansion that his father left him. James has also taken over the business left by his old man. But despite all of this, Sophie seems not happy with their new wealthy life. She is also not used to having helpers doing everything for her, so she decides to fire them all. James is confused as to why she did it, and Sophie says she is not comfortable having other people as servants. James tells her that she took them off their livelihood, and Sophie responds saying she paid them 2 years' worth of salary. James has been struggling because after his stressful job, they have to do some housework by themselves. He tells his assistant about this, and the assistant says that he is a wealthy man, so there is always a solution. The next day, James brings his wife to the company that his assistant told him. They make realistic-looking androids, and their CEO named Julian introduces his favorite female robot to the couple. James tells his wife that this could be their solution since she feels guilty having real people as servants. Sophie finally agrees, but she doesn't want the female one because she's too pretty. So instead, they chose the male android named Henry. To show them how obedient the android is, Julian instructs Henry to lick his shoes, and the robot does so. Later at the house, they set up the docking station for the android. Julian says it is used to charge or reset Henry in case issues arise. The next morning, Henry prepares breakfast for the couple, but Sophie still feels weird ordering him. James tells her to think of Henry as a washing machine, but his wife can't help but see him as a person. While putting on a robe, Sophie is surprised that Henry is in the room staring at her body. Sophie tells her husband about this, and though James reminds her that Henry is just a robot, she is still uncomfortable at what happened. James has been stressed at work, so he pulls Henry out of his docking station to play racquetball with him. They chat a little after one game until James mentions that his father died. The android says he is sorry for his loss, and James is confused for a moment, but then he shrugs it off. The next day, while Henry is helping Sophie fix an old couch, they start to talk about dreams. The android says he is fascinated by dreams, and when Sophie asks if he ever had one, Henry says no because it is not in their programming. Sophie gives Henry a book and asks him to read it so they can talk about it in their free time. One day while the boys are fixing an old car, Henry asks his owner if his love for Sophia grows with time or is it fading. James is puzzled by his question, and Henry adds that if he shares his fears with his wife, it will make their love grow. James asks where he learned that, and the android says it was something he deduced from by interacting with the couple. While Henry is sharing what he read from the book, Sophie asks what would happen if he drinks wine. The robot says he has a holding tank inside him that the docking station would empty. The woman gives him the glass, and Henry drinks it. James invited his employees for lunch, and they are all impressed with Henry because he is lifelike. Sophie says that she sometimes forgets that he is a robot, and James seems not pleased with this, saying it is important to train the mind in differentiating what's real and not. One day, Sophie asks Henry to talk about a part of the book, and the robot starts to talk about love and lust. The couple starts to argue about the difference between them, and when Sophie asks Henry if he can feel lust, the android says he can emulate it if she wants him to. James becomes uncomfortable and tells the robot it is not necessary. That night, Sophie wakes up to a noise, and when she goes out to check it, she finds Henry lying naked in the front yard. When she wakes him, the android is confused how he got there. Sophie asks if he was dreaming, and Henry says yes, he dreamt he was a human. While she's bringing him inside, James sees them, and Sophie explains what happened. Next morning, Julian says everything was normal and it was just a small glitch. Sophie asks why Henry claimed he was dreaming, and Julian says someone might have encouraged him to do that. He warns the couple not to treat him like a person, as it might lead him to behave like one. James blames his wife for reading a book and chatting with Henry the whole day. Sophie argues that he does the same when they play racquetball and work on the car. That evening, James sets up the mood by lighting candles beside the bed, but Sophie says she is tired, so the couple just goes on to sleep. The next day, Henry is massaging Sophie when the robot suddenly kisses her back. The wife is shocked, but then she lets it until it escalated. Moments later, Sophie wakes up, realizing that it was just a dream. When James is gone for work, Sophie leaves the door open and starts to delight herself, hoping Henry would see her. Moments later, she hears a sound and sees Henry going downstairs. She asks if he was watching her, and the robot asks if it would please her if he says he was. Sophie did not answer. James starts to get jealous as he sees the two smiling while talking to each other. He consults with Julian and says that the robot seems to be falling in love with his wife. Julian reminds him that Henry is just a robot, and his behavior must have been just a reflection of what Sophie desires him to do. James later tells Henry to stop flirting with his wife. The android replies that he is just doing what both of them desire. He senses that their love for each other is fading, and suggests that James should be the one to change and not him. James orders Henry to stop reading books to Sophie, and the robot tells the wife about this. The couple goes on to an argument, and Sophie decides to go back to their old apartment for a few days. One day, James calls Henry asking for his shaver. The android comes in with no clothes on, and the husband asks what is he doing. Henry says he was designed to do what they desire, and he starts shaving James until the two becomes intimate. The next day, James got good news from work, so he calls his wife and invites her on a vacation. Sophie says that they just talk about it when he gets home. She doubts her husband's effort, and Henry tells her that James is just trying to save their relationship. Sophie asked Henry to give her a massage, but then the android kisses her. When Henry tells her "I love you," Sophie is shocked and orders him to leave. When James arrives home, his wife tells him about what happened. He says that Henry only did it because that's what she desired. James decides to end it once and for all. He takes out the android from the docking station and asks why he kissed his wife. When the android says that she all but begged for it, James gets mad and punches him. Later that day, Henry asks Sophie if they are throwing him away, and she says they are just going to have him checked because James got angry when he kissed her. The android says her husband is a hypocrite because something happened between them. Julian later arrives, and Sophie tells him to turn off Henry, but she asks him not to leave yet before she gets back. She later arrives in James' office and confronts her husband on what he did. Meanwhile, Henry wonders why he has bruise, and it hurts when he touched it. Julian instructs him to return to the docking station, but the android says he won't, and he reveals that he already knew his lies. James tells his wife that he felt jealous when he saw her look happier with Henry. Sophie admits that the android made her feel that way, but it was all fantasy and not real. They apologize to each other and reconcile. When they arrive, they see Henry outside the house naked. He is upset that they are getting rid of him. They tell him that Julian will be able to fix him and he can get a new owner. James tells him to go back to the docking station, but Henry says he prefers to stay there until his battery drains. FBI has already surrounded Julian's office when the couple gets there. An agent explains to them that Julian is a fraud and that the androids were actually real humans. That's when they realize that Henry is a person. The FBI accompanies the couple in their house, and as they look for Henry on their front yard, Julian comes out and shoots the two agents. He reveals that Henry was abandoned at 3 years old, and he was starving to death when he saved him. Julian loved him like his own child and made him a perfect human. However, it hurts him that the couple is now abandoning him like what his parents did. When Julian is about to shoot them, Henry suddenly jumps on him and hits him with the gun until he expires. He later gets a knife and stabs himself, finally confirming that he is a human. Before he dies, Henry says he knew from the start that his feelings were true, and he apologizes for ruining their lives. 5 years later, the couple now lives happily, and they now have a son whom they named Henry. Did you like our movie recap? Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. To be updated for new movie recaps, hit the notification bell.